Week 15 of the fantasy football season, and here's the top 15 quarterbacks I'm ranking this week. Number 1, Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. I know this week it's definitely a tough matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys for Josh Allen and this Buffalo Bill team, but it doesn't matter the matchup. Josh Allen leads all quarterbacks in fantasy points this season. So right now, even with a tough matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys, where this still could be a potential shootout between these two teams, I think Josh Allen goes out there once again and has a good ball game. Number 2, Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. So the last couple weeks, the numbers have definitely gone down a little bit for Jalen Hurts. And this Eagle team on a 2-game skid, losing to the San Francisco 49ers and then at the Dallas Cowboys. But Jalen Hurts, we know, is a great quarterback. He could put up points up in a hurry. And this week at Seattle, a team that really can't stop anyone. We saw it the last couple weeks give up a lot of points to the Cowboys in Week 13 and Week 14. The Niners went up and down the field against them. I think on Monday night, this Eagle offense gets back to doing what got them to 10-3 on the season, and that's Jalen Hurts getting the ball to his playmakers like A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert back last week. That's going to help for sure as well. And this week I got him at 2-3, Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. I know Patrick Mahomes this season, besides one monster game, he hasn't done much in terms of putting up those big elite games, but still 20-25 fantasy points a week on average he's putting up. This week it's a great matchup in New England, and he's got a bad taste in his mouth, him and this Chief team, after the way they lost last week's ball game. So I think Mahomes, this could possibly be the best game he's played this season in terms of fantasy points, yards, and touchdowns. And at New England, I think he takes it out on them with a huge performance, and he's due. Number 4, Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. So this week could be a potential shootout on Sunday Night Football, where this Baltimore Raven team, their offense is still getting things going, even with Mark Andrews out for the season. Isaiah Likely's filled in well for this Baltimore Raven team. Lamar Jackson's still the best running quarterback in all pro football. Odell Beckham's starting to emerge and make plays for this team as well. And Jacksonville, I know their secondary and defense does create turnovers, but also they've given up a boatload of points this season as well. And we even saw it last week at the Cleveland Browns with Joe Flacco in their quarterback, who's not even 100% up to snuff with the playbook have a good game. So right now, Lamar Jackson, I think, once again goes out there with a good performance. Number 5, Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. So Dak Prescott, he's in the thick of things. Obviously, at the MVP race, the last 6-7 weeks of the year, Dak's been one of the best quarterbacks, obviously, in fantasy football. But this week, it's going to be a tougher matchup, hostile environment at Buffalo. Dak last week, it was a good game versus the Philadelphia Eagles, but he even admitted he could have played a better ball game. So right now, him and CeeDee Lamb are locked in. Dak's got this Mike McCarthy West Coast offense down to a T over the last few weeks, and that's definitely been the difference in things turning around for the Cowboys and Dak. This West Coast offense and just the footwork back there for him at quarterback. So this week at Buffalo, still a tough matchup, but he finishes within the top 5 in points this week. Number 6, Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. So Purdy this week, it's a great matchup once again at the Arizona Cardinals. In 2 weeks, he's putting up huge fantasy points. And this Niner team, they've definitely taken off as well after losing 3 in a row after that bye week. They've come on now and won 5 in a row. So Purdy's got great weapons. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, CMC out of the backfield. And this week at Arizona, I don't think it's going to be a let-up with this team. Got their foot on the gas now and want that number 1 seed. So Brock Purdy, I think, once again puts in a great performance, and he's up there in the MVP race as well like that. Number 7, Tua of the Miami Dolphins. So this Dolphin team, they got shocked and lost a bad ball game to a Tennessee Titan team. That was a huge underdog going in on Monday night in Week 14. So right now, Tua and this offense has to get back on track. They were a little lackadaisical towards the end of that ball game. And obviously, Tyreek Hill, he missed the majority of that game in and out of the lineup for this Miami Dolphin team. And obviously, it's a whole different ball game if Hill's not playing. So right now, I think Hill is going to play in this game. This Miami Dolphin team, they're fighting to try to get that first seed as well in the AFC. And after dropping a tough one to the Titans, a game they should have won, I think this week versus the New York Jet team, where they had success against them a few weeks ago on Black Friday, to turn things around and has a decent game. Number 8, Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams. So Matthew Stafford, the last few weeks, he's really getting things going, and Kyren Williams has been a big factor of getting this offense back up to where it should be. Kyren Williams opening up the passing game with teams respecting the run. And right now, this week, a great matchup versus the Washington Commanders that haven't stopped anyone all season. So a Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua in your offense, that's going to pay big dividends for your team. So right now, Cooper Kupp last week had over 100 yards in that one, found the end zone. Puka Nacua going out there running great routes and making great plays. And this week with a good matchup versus Washington and great weapons, I got Stafford at 8. Number 9, Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. I know turnovers have been an issue for sure over the last few weeks for Jared Goff. But this week in a potential shootout and a home game for this Lion team, where Goff's been way better at home than he's been on the road this season, and even throughout his career, going back to his Ram days. I think this week versus the Broncos, this Lion team gets back on track after losing a bad game at the Chicago Bears in Soldier Field. And when you got weapons like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta, you're just going to turn things around and get things going. When you got guys like that, you're not going to stay in a slump for long. And this week, I think he turns things around. And also, Jameson Williams the last few weeks is starting to emerge as an option as well. Number 10, Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Trevor Lawrence, he's gone out there and he's toughed it out over the last few weeks after he got a high ankle sprain in that ball game on Monday night in Week 13 versus Cincinnati Bengals. But last week in a tough matchup at the Browns, he went out there and put in a good performance, I thought, was Trevor Lawrence. So he's the captain of this team, no doubt about it. He's got good weapons still. Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram, who had 2 touchdowns last week. And I think this week in a matchup where they're fighting for a top seed in the AFC as well versus Baltimore, he knows he's going to have to put points on the board. In the last 4 or 5 weeks, he's turned this season around in terms of fantasy football as Lawrence. And I got him having a decent game once again. Number 11, Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. So Love, he was on a nice run until last week, where it was a tough matchup for him at the New York Giants, not throwing a good football, turning the football over, and obviously missing Christian Watson, who's a deep ball threat that opens up the whole field for this Packer team and this offense. So right now, Jordan Love, like I said, he's been playing good football for the most part. This is a big game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because if the Packers lose this one, their season is pretty much done, and they're not going to be in contention for the playoffs. In Tampa Bay, they've had trouble all season up in quarterbacks. I think this week, Jordan Love has a good ball game back in Lambeau Field, and this defense at Tampa Bay, after playing in a tough ball game last week versus Atlanta, is going to be tired out a little bit, and Love bounces back. Number 12, Sam Howell of the Washington Commanders. So Sam Howell amongst the league leaders in passing yards this season. He spreads the football all out all over the field, where you got good weapons. Terry McLaurin, even though his numbers have been down. Jahan Dotson, who's been playing good football lately. Logan Thomas. And Howell, he's a gunslinger and a gamer where he'll keep coming back and go till the end of the game. So this week, it definitely could be a garbage time type of ball game in Los Angeles in third quarter, early fourth, but Sam Howell still goes out there and competes, and he's only had 2 bad games all season, where pretty much his floor has been 20 fantasy points weekly. Number 13, Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears. So I'm a little bit down on Justin Fields. The first 2.5, 3 quarters of that game last week, he didn't look good at all versus the Detroit Lions. And then the fourth quarter, he had a big play in that one to DJ Moore that definitely helped out his fantasy day. He did as well. So this week, a tough matchup with the Cleveland Browns, one of the best defenses in the league. When you got a guy like Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, and possibly Denzel Ward returning in this game, I think it's going to be a long day for Justin Fields. But obviously, with his running ability and just some playmakers around him like a DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, he still could carve out a decent performance. Number 14, Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. So Kyler Murray, it's been an up and down return for him over the last few weeks. Not many weapons in this offense. Pretty much Hollywood Brown and Trey McBride, the only 2 threats in that passing game. But with that, and Kyler Murray not putting up huge fantasy points like we've seen in the past, maybe not 100% as well, coming off the ACL, it's a tough matchup versus San Francisco, where opposing quarterbacks really haven't done much over the last month of the season, where guys like Jalen Hurts have been shut down versus them this year. Dak Prescott was shut down versus them this year as well. And last week, Drew Lock got off to a good start, even though he's not a great quarterback. And then they shut him down in the second half. So right now, in a tough matchup versus San Francisco, I'm not expecting much out of Kyler Murray. But with his running ability, he could salvage it. And the 15th and final quarterback I'm ranking this week is Jake Browning of the Cincinnati Bengals. So Jake Browning, the last few weeks, he's gone out there and he's making big plays with good weapons, obviously, in Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and also as well Tanner Hudson has emerged a little bit at tight end position. And even Chase Brown, he's been catching the football out of the backfield, and Joe Mixon. So right now, good weapons around him. I know this week a tougher matchup versus Minnesota, coming off a shutout of the Las Vegas Raiders, even though I'm not buying that much into it, where this Cincinnati Bengal team offensively is more in rhythm and better than that Vegas Raider team. So Jake Brown in the last couple weeks, 20 of 5 or more fantasy points, 13 in week 14. And I think this week here in week 15, once again, he could carve out a top 15 performance. So that's the top 15 quarterbacks I'm ranking for week 15 of the fantasy football season.